Alright, so there's the finished product, pretty much. The painting of the engine. I used up exactly one spray can of that ER44 electrical insulating varnish enamel, and as you can see, I'm pretty happy with the results. I was able to build up a coat there, pretty good coat on the original paint. So I know some people, they have the concern that they say the paint is going to flake off. First of all, there was already original paint in there, so it's not a question of will the paint flake off. It's a question of you know, subject to the heat of the engine. It's a question of using the right paint and cleaning the surface correctly, both of which I should have accomplished. The original paint that was used, all sources indicate it was a Gliptol brand, but the Dolph should be just this exact same paint with a different brand. But it's one of those things. It could be, it could not be. But there, inside the engine, there was already the original paint. So we're not even, I didn't even paint on direct bare metal, bare cast iron. I'm actually painting over the original paint, which should be safer, because unlike cast iron, the original paint does not absorb oil. And it's been there for over 50 years, like I said, with no sign of damage whatsoever. Once it got cleaned up, it looked brand new. So I'm pretty confident. And the only thing that's kind of scares me a little bit is that the paint, while it's wet, at least it does get rubbed off. It does get dissolved by diesel and gasoline, which I, by the way, used to prevent these surfaces here from getting painted. So I put tape here on these flat surfaces, which was easy, but just in case you're wondering, on the camshaft holes, it would have been really difficult to get tape in there. So what I did is I just set a layer. I just got my finger and put a bunch of oil around there like that. That's just to prevent the paint from getting to the bearing. And then I just cleaned it off. Obviously the oil tends to settle at the bottom, so the top and the sides I had to wipe it off with diesel. And then I finally wiped it off with alcohol. So that's what I did. And for the valve seats, sorry, the these things here, I don't think they're called valves. I forget the name. Got a brain blank. Once the camera decides to zoom in. So stems, I guess. As you can see, these are perfectly fine as well. So I actually bought 2 new ones, but they haven't arrived yet. Anyways, so for the holes, such as there and there, those ones there, I did the same thing. I put a little bit of oil. Obviously it's not perfect, and then I just got a after I finished painting, I just got a rag, dipped it in diesel or you could use gasoline, and pushed it through with a bolt, and that worked fine to clean off the sides. And then just to make sure everything was perfect, I used one of these valve stems, whatever you want to call them. Dabbed it in diesel just a little bit, and pushed it through and made sure that there was no paint inside, and then cleaned it off again with the rag. So it should be really clean. It is really clean. Not should be. It is really clean. So there's that. And then I'm just going to show you the camshaft bearings. Just as I thought, they look fine. This one on the end here, it feels a little bit rougher than the other ones, but that's fine. So you have a good look at it, and then finally, alright, let me show you the other engine too. There's the other engine. I'm going to clean up this light rust powder there. I didn't worry about the cylinder bores, or the cylinder walls, or just cylinders, because I'm going to hone them. So the honing will remove all the paint, and I might just dump in some diesel as well. To prevent uneven honing. So, but I can actually put my hand through it, so it's not a big deal. And I did put some oil on it as well. Now some people are worried that the paint might flake off, and a lot of people just say, well, why would you paint an engine? Well, I like the idea of having the engine cleaned inside because, you know, at some point you're gonna have to change these bearings again. Maybe not within my lifetime, but somebody someday, maybe my great-grandchildren, are going to have to change the engine bearings. And it will be much easier to clean the engine if it is painted. And the other advantage is that the oil also flows better to the bottom again. I don't think that makes a huge difference. I don't think the paint makes that much of a difference, but cleaning, cleanliness is my main goal here with the paint job. And I also wanted to use this paint on the outside of the engine, which for the same reasons, like I said, I like to have a clean engine. I could probably do a whole video of reasons why you should have a clean engine, but we'll leave that for another time, or you do your own, you take your own conclusions. Now, as for the paint flaking off, the paint flakes off when you have a non-clean surface. That's the only case where that happens for any paint. Which what happens is, whatever junk or garbage that was already there or is coming through the surface is pushing the paint out. So for cast iron, which is relatively porous, let's say you have a bunch of oil on it, it's absorbed a lot of oil. Now once the engine is heated, that oil starts to tend to evaporate, so then it pushes the paint out and the whole paint sheet just comes off. Similarly for rust, if you just paint over rust, then that rust that's forming is pushing the paint out, and the water that is also pushing the paint out, and the paint just flakes off. Now that's the main reason why I used boiling water on the engine, and did this on a really hot day, which was probably about 30 degrees today. Celsius, not Fahrenheit. I hate Fahrenheit. So the engine was really hot for a long time, and with the boiling water, it just makes all that gasoline, junk, dirt, diesel, oil, grease just evaporate and come off. Even if you just dump just pure straight water, boiling water on a grease, it will become thin. You'll actually get it to move. And then I also used the gun there, that with boiling water, to force 160 psi pressurized air to make sure every little corner was nice and clean. So the surface preparation it's pretty much the best it can get. And by the way, there was already paint on it, so we're not painting. Like I said, there's no chance of the surface being prepared badly, because we're already cleaning the paint, so there's already paint on there and the paint is fine. The only problem that we could possibly have is if the paint somehow reacted with the old paint, and that would have been a problem, but fortunately that didn't happen. These paints are compatible. It should be 100%. The only thing that I've changed, like I said, people have painted their engines. Just think of how many millions of engines came from the factory painted. So, if you're scared it's gonna crack, well, it won't unless you use the wrong paint. Now the only thing, like I said, that I changed was the brand. Instead of using Gliptol, I used Dolph's, but we're hoping for the best. So with that regard, the paint shouldn't flake off. If it's going to react with something, then it's just going to dissolve, which is not a problem. Like I said, to cause the paint to flake off, it has to be something different. Now I'm going to check the oil, to be honest, because I've never used this brand of paint. So I am going to be checking the oil regularly, and I can even take the whole oil pan off to see how good the paint is. So it should be 99%, 0.999. Chances are it's going to be fine. The only possible problem is if the paint starts dissolving from just being the other brand not working. In that case, you'll be sure to know. What else can I say? So at this point, I think I'm going to end the video, and I think that concludes the discussion for the paint. After the paint is dry, I'm gonna wait a few days. It's gonna stay out here in the sun, direct sunlight, for a few days, and then once it's done, I'm just gonna try putting normal paint, like a trim clad rust paint, on the side, just a small spot, and see if it'll stay there. So I don't know if it'll react. I'm gonna hope it doesn't react. So that's why I'm just going to paint a small spot after that, because I don't want to leave it red like this, and it's not even thick enough. So I want a thicker layer of paint there. for that.